Hi, welcome to Roots to Fruit headquarters. We're up in our beautiful orchard amongst our allotments, and I'm here to show you how to plant up two very basic and simple hanging baskets. And the hanging baskets, I would say, are child play in the sense that you can do these with children, whether you are in a school or whether you've got kids. You can get them involved in planting up these hanging baskets. They're so simple, and I'm going to show you how to do them. And there are going to be two types of hanging baskets. One is going to be made of beautiful flowers, the other one is made up of edibles. And in this one we've done earlier, this one's got tomatoes in it. And if you look very closely, you will be able to see that tomatoes have already started to grow. And tomatoes work really great in hanging baskets, but I'm going to show you how to do that one separately in a moment after I have done the first one, which is all about the ornamentals. The easiest type of hanging basket to use is a plastic hanging basket that is like this. The great thing about it is you haven't got to worry about putting liner in, you haven't got to worry about all the water draining out and watering loads and putting lots and lots of water on there to keep them looking really nice and beautiful. They have this very clever little reservoir at the bottom, so you can see the drainage holes are slightly dimpled and it's raised up here, which means it creates a constant reservoir of water in there. So as a hanging basket, these are dead easy to buy. You can get them from the pound shop. They are great for beginners and they'll produce some amazing results. So the first thing that you've got to do is get your compost ready. And what we tend to do, especially with hanging baskets that have flowers in, is we put a chemical fertilizer in. And that might be phosphagen or grow more, something that will allow the flowers to really be produced freely and predominantly throughout the growing season, which is literally from the first week of June or the last week of May after the frosts all the way through till October, if you play your cards right and if you look after the hanging basket after you've planted it. So that compost is sieved and ready and all the lumps are taken out and it's ready to put in. And we don't fill it all the way up, we're just going to fill at the moment halfway up. And what you're doing with this hanging basket is you're looking at creating something that is almost a reflection of what the hanging basket looks like underneath. You're creating that reflection within flowers. So what you tend to see a lot of really badly done hanging baskets, they'll just have stuff that's flat that's coming over. But you can see you've got all of that depth there. We need something tall in the middle to reflect what's underneath. So I'm going to choose something like that's going to grow tall, something like this begonia. And the great thing about different types of begonias, there's loads of them. There's this one here. You can see they look very similar, but they're different. They've got different types of leaves, they've got different coloured flowers. Because it's quite tall, I'm going to put it in the middle. We also have ordinary begonias that we can put in, and again these are upright ones, so you can put a couple in around the outside edge. And what we're starting to do is we're working our way down like that. And what you're roughly trying to do is you're trying to think about, when you're looking up from the hanging basket, think of it in threes. There's little dimples in here that will show you where you can put your hanging basket hook. Those are the ones where you just kind of just want to avoid having anything too close so that the plants aren't rubbing on the chain or the support. Another great plant you can get is Lobelia. This one here is lovely and trailing, and again it's a bit too, we've got to get it a little bit higher, so I'm going to put a little bit more soil in there so that we can just start to hang over the trailing Lobelia over the edge. Another great plant that works really well in hanging baskets are petunias, different types of petunias that you can get. This one again, put it towards the top and just have it just hanging over the edge, but do not fill the compost all the way up to the top of the pot. Leave about that much of the pot lip standing up, because that lip represents how much water the hanging basket needs every time you water it. So when you water a hanging basket, you know that once the water is filled up to that lip on the hanging basket and it's starting to overflow, you know there's enough water for it to soak down and for the plants to drink it up. Now, a lot of people get obsessed about things being in flower, and that's the only way that you can create colour. I'm telling you now, flowers are great, but they're not as reliable as other things like foliage. And you can see that these two here, we've got a Nepeta, which is related to catmint, and we've also got Tradescantia blushing bride. Now, Tradescantia blushing bride there is a plant that comes all the way from the Americas. You can see it growing like weeds in places like the Caribbean. It does have a white flower, but we're not interested in that white flower. What we're interested in is lovely pink flush of variegation that is there within the leaves that gives it that colour all the way through from now until October. Because flowers, they're going to die, things are going to go to seed. Unless you're there deadheading all the time, it becomes an unreliable colour. So you've got to add things there that are going to give you reliable colour, and it's looking at leaves that are variegated, or either like this pink or like this white and green, to give contrast in the basket and to make the basket stand out and to give static colour for a long time. And again, this one grows over the edge, so I'm going to put a little bit more in, so not quite up to the top. I'm putting it into there so that it starts to hang over the edge like that. And I've got another gap that's just over here. Now, for demonstration purposes, I've put way too much stuff in here because this basket's going to fill up in no time. But just for demonstration purposes, just to show you, I'm giving you an idea of what you can put within this hanging basket and how you can use these plants together to create interest and colour from May, the end of May, all of the way through until October. Other plants you can put in there are Bacopa, and the great thing about Bacopa and Tradescantia and the begonias is you can take them and save them for next year. So the begonias, they grow from a corm, so you'll be able to see on here that there's like a root store that's just there. That's a corm. If you dry that out and save it in a cool, dry place like in your garage or garden shed, you can keep that for next year and keep using it year after year after year. Tradescantia Blushing Bride also works really well as a house plant, and again this one as well, put it in your conservatory, put it in your greenhouse, save it for next year. It'll just be even bigger and even more beautiful. Just give it a bit of water and keep it over the winter out of the frost. So that's the key. So once you've done that, start to fill in with compost, and this is where you are basically looking for any roots that are exposed, and you're pushing down the soil so that everything's nice and firmly and not too hard so that nothing can move and the roots can't expand and grow. But we're literally just looking for areas and gaps and air pockets, and it's going to go in. And remember to keep it below that lip so that when you fill it up with water and you start to water it, you can then know that the right amount of water has gone in there to feed the entire basket. And that's it. That's where we have a really nice basket that's dead colourful. Look at all the different colours that are in there. And when you put on your hook, what you're doing is you're looking for, let's get the right one, you're looking for areas where there should be some dimples that are in there, and they're literally like clips that come on. And then we'll get the last one in. Let's make sure we hear that nice satisfying click. We know that it's locked on. What you don't want to do is pick it up and suddenly it drops and everything falls out and breaks all your plants. That would be an absolute disaster. And you can choose which way you want it to be facing out, especially if it's hanging up and it's in front of a wall. We can do that. So those will then eventually grow over, and what we're trying to do eventually is that pot won't be seen anymore. There'll be that much stuff that's coming out over the foliage and over the side of the basket and covering it up and making it look like it's just a ball of planty magic hanging against and making your house look really beautiful. So that's a flower ornamental colourful basket to give you know, put it by some doorways and give some brightness, perk people up when they're walking by. But some people like the idea of being able to pick stuff out of a hanging basket. So what we have here is an edible hanging basket. So when you pick things out of it, you can pick a tomato. And also what we're going to have a look at doing is putting in some peas as well. So you get some flowers. This tomato, as you can see, is in flower at the moment. It has yellow flowers on, but eventually they'll turn into tomatoes. But even while you're waiting for the tomatoes to ripen, that beautiful red colour is just as good as flowers. If you put chilies in there, the bright red chilies are just as good as flower and will last longer than flowers. And at the end of it, you get to eat the fruit and get the benefit from it. So that's the great thing about an edible basket, and tomatoes are probably one of the best situated for putting into a hanging basket. They're a great plant to do that. So again, you get the same kind of basket again. It's a really cheap as chips basket, so they don't cost you a fortune. It's not going to cost you lots and lots of money, but instead of putting a chemical fertilizer, we put an organic fertilizer. If you're vegan, you can get from Oakdean Nurseries a vegan based compost that has no animal products in it whatsoever, no manure, no fish blood and bone. It's used calcified seaweed, and it's made from our best, richest compost that we have. So what we're going to do with this one, we're going to have we've got a bit of chicken manure and fish blood and bone that's added to it to add that sort of extra feed and fertilizer that we need. So again, I'm filling it only roughly about 3/4 of the way up to the top, and this is where we start to use the centre plant, instead of it being something tall like we've got the begonia over there, the tallest one is going to be a tomato. And what I've chosen here is a bush tomato, and it has cherry tomatoes, and the cherry ones work the best in the hanging baskets. You can get another one called red currant. I mean, they're like eating sweets. They're sort of little, tiny little tomatoes. This is the one that we're going to put in the middle over there, like so. And what you can also do, I mean, you could leave that if you wanted to and let that, that's just one tomato that's in there. That's one we did 2 weeks ago. So you could leave that and you fill the basket out. But if you're hanging it up and you're looking down and you want to cover the sides and get some more extra fruit or food out of your hanging basket area, another thing that you can put in is we've got some peas. So you can see these peas. Peas are really easy to grow, and you know, it's great for kids. Kids love eating things like peas. So what I'm just going to do is put some pea plugs in. They're literally seeds that were put straight into the soil and into this compost. You can see where the pea has come up. It's grown that much in the last couple of weeks, and I'm just going to pack it with loads of peas on the outside. So I keep following it. I'll try and avoid where we're going to be putting our hanging basket hooks, where they're going to be clipped on. But if you didn't have any pea plants to do that, go out and buy some pea seeds and just push the seeds straight into the compost. You don't have to wait for them to be plants, because peas grow so easily and they germinate so easily that just putting the seeds in would be enough for them to grow and to start coming over the sides. And by the time you've finished eating your tomatoes, you've then got a lovely crop of peas. Other plants that you can put in there, you can put in nasturtiums. Nasturtiums have edible leaves and edible flowers. The flowers have quite a peppery taste, and again, you don't have to wait for the nasturtium seeds to come up. You can put them in as seeds straight away, straight into the hanging basket, and it just makes it a much easier way of planting up your basket. So we've got all of the peas hanging over the side there, and all that's left for me to do now is to get the last of the compost in around and make sure that it is planted up nice and properly, and that those roots, etc., are covered over and nothing's exposed. But obviously we're not filling it all the way up to the top. All we're doing is we're leaving that lip like we did on the other one. Why? Because that's your reservoir of water. As you water it, that should be filling up, and just as it starts to come over the edge, you know that you've given it enough water, because that reservoir there is an empty space. It's saying, fill me with water and I'm enough to feed and help your plants grow in the hanging basket. That's what the pot has told you. And so we're just going to press those down nicely. They're already there. Even if you drop the hanging basket, the plants came out, it's a bit of a disaster, you didn't put the hook on properly, very much so, hanging baskets, a lawn, even a haircut are all pretty much the same. That the difference between a well-cut lawn, or the difference between a badly cut lawn, or the difference between well-cut hair, or the difference between badly cut hair, or the difference between a well-planted hanging basket and a badly planted hanging basket this time of year is 2 weeks. Because once it starts to fill out, you won't recognise it as that hanging basket. Over this next 2 weeks, there's a prime growing season for these plants, and they're going to fill out these baskets, and it's going to be amazing, and they're going to hit peak. And in a moment, I'm going to be talking to you about the kind of aftercare that you need to give these baskets in order to either get the most flowers and colour or the most produce out of them. But remember, when you are putting these hooks on, go to the designated spots where it's guiding you, and also at the same time, make sure you hear that satisfying click. And there is our edible hanging basket made ready. So hopefully soon you'll have some delicious fruits to enjoy from it. So I'm hoping you've come with us this far and you've produced your hanging basket and you're ready to hang it up. Just to talk about the kind of aftercare that you're going to need to give it over the next coming weeks in order for it to keep producing lots and lots and lots of colour. So the keys is water and food. And with hanging baskets, they're greedy plants. Most trailing plants are greedy plants and they take up lots of nutrients and they take in lots of sunlight. So that needs to be replaced continuously. People often ask me, how many times should you water a hanging basket? I tell them every day, and people say to me, what, even when it rains? Correct, because if it is against a house or under the eaves of a house, it's in a rain shadow, even if it rains, it still doesn't get any water, so make sure you water it. Now on most days, you can water your hanging basket with a hose pipe. Yeah, as long as it's not on too much of a blast, you can water it, and if they're really high up, you can get special attachments for the hose pipe. But at least on one day of the week, you must do this, water it with a watering can. Because I'm going to show you one trick, A, that will save you money, and B, that will mean that you'll get a higher yield of flowers or fruit. And that is the trick of using a product called Tomarite or tomato food. So it's a liquid tomato food, that's what you're after. And basically, you can use this for flowering hanging baskets and fruit bearing hanging baskets. You don't just use it for your tomatoes. It's cheaper than the normal liquid fertilizer because it's for producing food. And all it is, if you've got like a watering can, once a week or twice a week, you get 1 cap of Tomarite, mix it in with the water, use a rose, and give it a really good watering. So you can see how that reservoir is working, but when it's starting to fill up with water, it's pooling and puddling on the surface, we know that we've got plenty in there. Now, other jobs that you need to be doing is, if it's a tomato hanging basket, if you see any sort of yellow leaves that you don't like, that could harbour pests or diseases, pinch them out, take them off, throw them away. And also do the same with your flowering hanging basket. There's one flower there that's looking a bit sad. Keep pinching off the dead flowers. Get rid of the dead flowers, because that will encourage them to produce more flowers, because the plant is going through a life cycle and it's getting to the point whereby it produces seed or fruit. With your flowering plants, you can keep the plants going perpetually until the first frosts by taking out the flowers before they turn to seed, because the plant thinks, gotta produce seed. Oh, someone's taken away the seeds. I've got to produce more flowers so I can produce more seed. And that's what it's driven, that's what it's programmed to do. So that's what you do with that. Obviously you do not do that with your tomatoes, because you'll be picking all your fruit off. But with the tomatoes, with your peas, you're looking for any dead leaves, dead foliage, anything that's been nibbled, damaged, pick it out. Obviously don't strip it bare, but just so that there isn't anything there that's dead that can harbour pests or diseases. And so those are your main jobs of when you are looking after a hanging basket. And one other thing to do is, when you look at it, every now and again, like particularly if you're going to do it with once a week with the watering can, make a habit of getting it down, putting it on the floor, so that you can see all the way around the basket, so that you can really make sure all of the water gets in there, so that you can inspect it. And also when you put it up, try to keep rotating it so that it all gets into the sunlight, so that over time it will be evenly grow. You'll get even growth, and you'll get an even amount of flowers or fruit to keep turning them. So it's picking off dead and diseased foliage. On your flowering hanging basket, picking off the dead flowers, so dead heading. Watering them daily, even if it rains, and at least once a week, a cap of Tomarite, tomato feed, in your watering can to keep them invigorated and alive, and also getting them down to do that and inspecting them and turning them on the hook so that they get an even amount of sunshine, so you get an even amount of growth, and you get an even amount of flowers and an even amount of fruit. John Ensel. I'm one of the company directors at Roots Fruit Midlands Limited. We're a training organisation. We run lots of different qualifications. We're doing our first online qualification. We're going to do it on the theme of garden design, organic gardening. We're going to also throw in some other units about horticulture that you can do from your armchair. You can do this qualification from your armchair and learn about the wonderful craftsmanship of gardening and garden design. So if you've watched this video and you like it, make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is free of charge, and it will keep notifying you every time we put up a new video. Also, we can give you loads more information by doing one of our courses, whether that's accredited doing an off-qual backed qualification in garden design or horticulture under countryside skills, or whether you just want to do it for your own enjoyment, get more information about how to design your garden and learn from me, an award-winning garden designer and horticulturalist. Go to www.rtflearn.co.uk. That's www.rtflearn, that's what you're looking for. That'll take you to a landing page and it'll show you all of our different courses and all of our prospectuses. But make sure you like and subscribe to the YouTube videos so that you keep getting those. Thank you for watching.